Welcome to another episode of A Breath of Fresh Jacob, where I have to come up with a bunch of stuff off the top of my head to answer questions that you guys think are good. Hey, guess what? We got a good question today. Today's question is brought to you by Random User 125 and asks, are open world games really worth it? Yes and no. So first we have to decide what is good and what is bad about open world. Now, obviously, this is my opinion. Yours may differ. Some of the good stuff is unparalleled freedom of exploration. Go anywhere, do anything you want in the order that you want. It's very free and it's just awesome, okay? It feels great to be able to just explore a world, right? And that gives you a connection with the world that a linear game doesn't do quite as much, with exceptions, right? Some games are really good about introducing you to the world that you're in without giving you that freedom, but that freedom allows you to learn it at your own pace, allows you to delve into it as much or as little as you want, and that's pretty cool. Getting lost inside stuff, right, which goes back to like the whole world building thing, you could spend hours doing side content and not touching the main plot, and that's okay. The game is like, yeah, sure, do whatever you want, and that's awesome. A lot of games that are open world either do that really well or really bad. With a big giant open map, there's usually a lot of collectibles, which if you like collectibles and like running around doing a bunch of stuff like that, then hey, perfect. The world is your sandbox, okay? Go for it, have fun. Which also leads me to the satisfaction of filling in the map. You know what I mean? Like you go and as you move, you see the map fill in a little bit around you, or in the case of like something like Xenoblade Chronicles, right? Where you're moving, you're uncovering the map, you're finding shortcuts, it's really nice and it's very satisfying. However, it's not all good because there's a lot wrong with open world stuff, and that is a great example. That is open nothingness, right? You get these giant worlds where it's like, oh, I can go all over the place, but there's nothing to do. You can go anywhere, but why? There's no reason to go to these places. There's a big map, but there's nothing on it. Breath of the Wild. Yeah, that's right, I said it. Breath of the Wild has a giant map with a whole bunch of nothing. Anyway, not gonna talk about Breath of the Wild too much, because I mentioned that collectibles were a good thing, but if they overdo it, it gets obnoxious. Look at something like Crackdown. That's too much. There's way too many collectibles in a game like that, and it's so daunting knowing that if you want to get 100%, you're spending many hours, and it gets old pretty fast, actually. Another problem that I personally have with open world games is, let's say you want to continue the plot. You're interested in the characters developing, you're interested in new locations that you'll unlock by proceeding with the plot, or you're just interested in the plot itself. It'll drop you somewhere on the map, it'll be like, oh, we need you to go to such and such, and now you have to go from point A to point B, and it might take 5-10 minutes, which doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're ready to engage in the next part of the plot and the game's making you just walk there, oh my god, it gets so old when you do it for the 47th goddamn time. Ugh. So, you know, it makes it a little tedious, and I feel like that overall takes away from the story because there's too much downtime. These story beats that are keeping you high energy and engaged and everything like that are falling flat because it's like, oh, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Hang on, I gotta walk 10 minutes. It gets irritating. Another thing is like the Ubisoft towers, and I call them that because they're in like every open world Ubisoft game. You know, like in Assassin's Creed, when you climb up to those synchronization points, you hit the button and it fills in that section of the map. That's a Ubisoft tower. Far Cry has them in the form of radio towers. Breath of the Wild, which is not a Ubisoft game, has them in the form of whatever they're called in that game. I don't remember what they're called, but you know, you climb all the way to the top of the thing, you hit the button, and map opens up. Cool. But now every game does that, right? Every open world game copied that. And it makes unrelated games feel samey. Because it's like, oh yeah, I've seen that. Oh yeah, I've seen that. Oh yeah, I've seen that. Because they all have this formula that they like to copy. Which, you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But also, in a world where video games are supposed to be creative, maybe tweak it a little bit to where it doesn't feel the same. You know, ooh, the camera backs out and pans around. Like, ooh, I haven't seen that a million times in 1,000 other games. I don't know, it just, when it opens up the map, and it's like, oh, cool, now I get to go do more stuff. But it's the same stuff you've been doing for 15 hours, and it's like, can we do something else? No. Just do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. We copy-pasted everything. Here's your game, $60, or anymore, $70. So it's just like, the copy-paste aspect is really unfortunate, but it gets the games out on shelves faster. I think, personally, in an open world game, good or bad, traversal is key. How quickly or how fun is it to get from point A to point B when you have a destination in mind, right? Whether it be plot or something else. How fun is it to get from point A to point B? Like, look at something like Grand Theft Auto, where it's like you're driving a vehicle, right? Well, maybe you can listen to some music. Or maybe you can drive on the wrong side of the road just to be a dick. Like, you know, how fun is it to get from point A to point B? If it's boring, then your whole game is going to be boring because you've centralized everything around movement. And if the movement's not good, then the movement's not good. And it's just... Another thing that I think that open world games need is more Yakuza. And I don't mean like the actual Mafia, I mean the game, right? Because that game has a bunch of side stuff, but it's all so densely packed. Where it's like, well, I want to go do something. Well, it's going to take you about 20 seconds to get there and you're good to go. Because everything is so densely packed. And that's really, really nice. Yakuza's really good. You should go play Yakuza. It's a phenomenal game series. Anyway, another thing that I think is a little iffy on open world games is the fear of missing out, right? Like you explore, you've spent 20 hours exploring, and you're like, okay, I want to get to the plot. And then you do the plot and this whole new area opens up and you want to continue the plot, but you're afraid that if you don't explore every inch, that you're going to miss out on something. And that feels so bad because then you're afraid to continue the game. Or like, look at any kind of like Metroidvania exploration game, right? Where it's like the path forks, right? And you're like, ooh, do I go left or do I go right? I want to go the direction that doesn't advance the plot because I don't want to miss anything. So you're afraid to go the right way because then the game might lock you out of something. So it's just like, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Anyway, these are a lot of problems that I have, but not all open world games are bad, right? A lot of them are really good. I mean, I enjoy a lot of the Assassin's Creed games. Far Cry 3 is a phenomenal game. You should play it if you haven't. And a lot of people really like Breath of the Wild, and it has a lot to like, even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, but you know what? Yeah, I'll stop droning on about open world games. To answer your question, are they really worth it? Yes, but I think maybe everybody needs to calm down with them. And by everybody, I mean game developers and or publishers. Because it's like, we've got enough. Give us something different. Not everything has to be open world to be good, okay? Not every game has to last 200 hours to be worth the money. You know what I mean? I'm gonna go now before my head explodes. I'll see you guys next time. And thank you, Random User 125, for the fantastic question. We'll see you guys next time.